Welcome to Infinite Novel. Dive into epic alternate realities. All rights to original creators.
Chapter 15, CH15, Troublesome Student. So, are you going to tell me what happened? Ren asked, looking at Hinata with an unamused stare. It was Saturday, so he hadn't seen the girl the whole day, and when she came to the training today, she was a mess. She tried to valiantly hide it, but the small wince whenever she stepped on her left foot was plainly visible to Ren's eyes, as was the badly covered bruise with makeup on her right cheek, or the fact that breathing seemed to hurt her. Hearing the question, Hinata ducked her head in embarrassment. My father wanted me to have another match with my sister, she said in quiet distaste before looking up at Ren with feigned confidence. It's okay. I am fine. I can train today. Oh? Really? Ren pleasantly smiled as he poked Hinata's left cheek, right on the badly disguised bruise, making her yowl in pain, which quickly turned into a gasp as a flare of pain from her lungs hit her. Are you truly fine? He asked in concern. He was quite demanding during her training, but he never injured her to this extent. MHM. A medic said so. Hinata mumbled, and that was that. Ren didn't know medical ninjutsu. He tried to learn it in the past, but when he saw the mountain of medical texts he would have to read first, let's just say he did not get to the part where he was supposed to learn the technique before he bailed out. Alright then, Ren exasperatedly said. Is your sister always this brutal with you? That question made Hinata sad as her expression fell and she nervously clutched her hands together in a habit only since she was declared the heiress. She is under a lot of pressure, she said with sad eyes, and Ren had no idea how to cheer her up, so he only awkwardly pulled the girl close into an awkward hug. She stiffened for a moment before leaning on him and holding onto him for her dear life, hugging the stuffing out of him. How was he supposed to comfort a teenage girl again? They didn't teach this shit in the academy. Have you ever thought about using your eyes to learn kiten? He awkwardly asked after he felt her calm down, making her finally release him from her death grip of doom or some other main house technique? To at least protect yourself. I already know kiten. Hinata wetly sniffed and wiped away a tear from under her left eye. You don't say. Ren hummed in a way that told Hinata she was in trouble, and her face became slightly redder as she realized this was something she was supposed to mention way sooner. And you were going to inform me when exactly? I was just afraid you would tell father. Hinata mumbled, averting her face away from Ren in shame. With a sigh, Ren understood her reason for keeping quiet. He didn't like that she didn't trust him. But, I see. If you learn kiten without anybody teaching you, they would put you in the same category as Niji. People said that Niji was a genius. Ren said that it was bullshit. Niji just wasn't a freaking idiot. Ren was certain that the boy simply used his Byakugan to observe the main branch members practice and learned their techniques that way. That didn't mean it was easy to learn techniques via simple observation. Niji probably took several months. Ren was actually quite surprised that Hinata already managed it. Then again, this was the girl who in canon created her own defensive technique on par with kiten because nobody bothered to teach it to her. Honestly, it was stupid how much the Hyuga clan limited themselves in the name of tradition. They wouldn't use their eyes to learn techniques because that's not their way. They don't practice ninjutsu because it's not their way. They don't practice medical ninjutsu because that's beneath Hyugas. They were lucky Ren didn't want to become Hokage, because he would have executed half of the dim-witted clan for being stupidly stubborn the second he got the position. They had one of the best bloodlines in the world. A bloodline that lets them see the chakra in extreme detail, causing their chakra control to be superb by nature. That lets them see through objects and gives them an almost 360-degree field of vision. That lets them see for kilometers. And what do they do with it? They decide to focus on close combat taijutsu. It was no fucking wonder they never produced an S-rank ninja since the founding of the village. They were like that one idiot in the multiplayer RPG game who joined your party as a damage dealer mage but invested all his points into strength so his spells barely did anything. And they were proud of it too. Brother Niji. Hinata's eyebrows furrowed at that as she inwardly wondered why Ren mentioned the boy. Ren realized that he had blundered. Niji hadn't even graduated yet, so if he knew kiten already, he wasn't showing it to anybody anytime soon. Doesn't matter. Ren just waved the question away, causing an awkward silence to spread through the surroundings for a few moments. You really don't want your sister to be sealed, do you? Ren eventually said, putting into words the reason Hinata let herself be beaten like this. He sparred with the girl. There was no way she would be having trouble with her sister as she is now. Hinata wordlessly shook her head, clearly not comfortable with the direction of their conversation. Do you want to get sealed? Ren asked with a raised eyebrow, but Hinata had no answer for that, so she just ducked her head again, staying silent. He sighed once again. This girl was just so troublesome. As I see it, there is just one solution to this problem, he told her, making her give him a wide-eyed look. She had probably already accepted her fate and did not see a way out. That didn't mean she liked it. You have to become really powerful. Enough that your clan elders won't be able to mess with you. Thanks to her father, she was in a unique position. Hyugas were sealed as children. It did not matter how strong they became in their adulthood. Once they had that seal on their forehead, even a jonin could be brought to knees with a simple hand seal. But if Hinata became a jonin-level ninja before she was sealed? Good luck trying to put that seal on her. It wasn't a foolproof plan, but it was the best Ren got. Is that really possible? Hinata quietly asked as she clutched the hem of her jacket. She still wore it every time she came into the training field, but she always diligently took it off for her training just as Ren asked of her. You won't know unless you try. and you have one advantage that just might make it happen. Ren pointed out. What advantage? Hinata asked in a puzzled tone. You have me as your teacher. Ren proclaimed in feigned arrogance, even going as far as smirking at the girl and raising his nose high into the air. It got the desired result and Hinata giggled. The tension left her shoulders as she relaxed. So, wanna try? Ren asked her and his smirk melted into a small supportive smile. Hinata's cheeks flushed as her lips stretched into an involuntary happy smile of her own. I'll be in your care, teacher. Now then. Ren started to wonder how to tell the 14-year-old teenage girl that he would have to see her naked in order to paint gravity seals on her. That was going to be a fun conversation, wasn't it? Chapter 16, ch 16 Gravity seals there. That's done. Ren tensely said after finishing drawing the gravity seals on Hinata as he stiffly took her jacket from the ground beside her and covered her naked body before standing up and taking a large step back. He gulped. There must be something wrong with how chakra interacted with physical and mental maturity in this world. Now that he had a proper look, Hinata was a bit too developed for her age. Just don't think about it. All is as it should be. Ren embarrassedly tried to keep his gaze on Hinata's forehead and damn if it wasn't hard. Hinata lifted her body into a sitting position, her face redder than ever as she quickly pulled the jacket tightly around her body, vainly trying to disappear within it. She looked down and absolutely refused to meet Ren's eyes. Right. Ren awkwardly coughed. I'll go and let you get Dre's dash. He abruptly stopped, noticing that her wide eyes were not looking at the ground but instead, they were aimed directly at his crotch and flushed from embarrassment. He had just finished drawing seals all over the girl's naked body. His reaction was only natural. He woodenly turned around and ran away at his fastest walking speed. Later in the day, Ren sat at the Ichiraku's, absent-mindedly fiddling in the ramen bowl with his chopsticks while his cheeks still felt hot and he only hoped they were not red. It was bad enough that he had to return once Hinata was dressed and explained to her how having gravity seals was going to affect her. They were both acting like embarrassed teenagers, refusing to look at each other while they awkwardly talked. Ren would love to say that he was cool and badass, taking everything in stride, and he certainly tried his best, but his best just wasn't good enough. At that moment, his mind just blanked out and he wished the ground would open and swallow him whole. Now that he regained some of his cool, he was wondering why they didn't have a class to deal with body shyness in the academy. Worse yet, because of the gravity seals, he needed to monitor Hinata's well-being. So, he scheduled a training session for tomorrow. He already felt mortified just thinking about it, but it was necessary. He told her she would feel very uncomfortable in the first month as her body grew used to constantly being under slightly stronger gravity. He remembered that he couldn't even fall asleep in that first month unless he was so exhausted he just fainted. That constant discomfort might not hurt, but it was always there. Like a persistent itch that was impossible to scratch, making a person unable to relax no matter what. Not to mention, being under heavier gravity was physically tiring even if the mind was not really registering it because the pressure was barely noticeable at all times, growing heavier as the user got stronger. Ren was sure that Hinata would come to the training tomorrow with black circles under her eyes. He didn't intend to train her. He was just going to knock her out and let her sleep for a few hours on the grass to make it easier on her. He knew he would have appreciated it if somebody did that for him when he was going through the experience. She was going to feel like absolute shit for the next few weeks, so it was Ren's duty as her teacher to make her discomfort as comfortable as possible. In the end, it would be all worth it for the girl. He explained to Hinata what his gravity seals were and how they worked, and the girl understood just what a priceless thing he was offering her. Unlike the fanfictions from his previous life, there was no such thing as gravity or resistance seals in this world. It's why Ren had to create his own. Most people in this world did not even know what gravity was. They did not study physics or chemistry in the schools over here. No such thing really existed. Kids in the Ninja Academy focused on learning how to be a ninja, and the less said about civilians the better. They were happy if they learned how to write and read. There was a reason why so many civilians sent their kids to the ninja academies in the ninja villages. They simply provided superior education and a chance at a better life. This world was still barely past its medieval stages. It was also still a feudal society. And Newton did not exist here. There was no such thing as Newton's laws, or any other laws of physics. Oh, these laws still affect the world. But the natural sciences in this world were still in their infancy, not even having a name yet. People know that if they jump, they will fall to the ground. But they had no idea why and didn't really care to think about it. The theories about gravity did exist. Some of them were surprisingly advanced. Ren checked. But they were high-level ninjutsu or fuinjutsu stuff that most ninjas did not even bother looking at. Scientists did try to understand the world. But the civilian scientists had a hard time getting funding, so sciencing was pretty much a hobby for nobles. It was not a popular hobby either. While the ninja scientists mostly focused on the supernatural nature of chakra and researched how it worked and affected the world around them. That's why Guy used weights. He simply did not have a better alternative. But unlike the gravity seals, the weights were limited. They did not put even pressure on the body, making it grow in strength disproportionately for different body parts. The stronger a person got, the more weights he needed for further growth, but weights were bulky, so there was a limit to how much a ninja could wear before they became a hindrance. The heavier the weights were, the bigger they were, and it wasn't as if Guy could strap house-sized weights to his ankles and live like that. There was a limit to how far a ninja, even one as crazy as Guy, could take weight training. With chakra, a person could theoretically enhance their body as long as the body registered it needed to grow stronger. It was proven that chakra allowed the body to evolve beyond human limits and slowly become stronger under strain. Guy was a very good example of that. But even then, the man got to his current physical peak, and now, no matter how many hundreds of thousands of push-ups he did, his gains were minimal. Because his body is too strong and the pressure from a normie training like that is just not enough for his body anymore, even if he trains all day. Even if he wears the heaviest weights he could get his hands on, it's simply not enough pressure on his body. But he doesn't have a better alternative than just doing push-ups and running around the village with weights. It's probably why he always came up with such ridiculous challenges for Kakashi. The man definitely wants to get stronger, but it's maddeningly slow going at his level. That's why Ren's gravity seals were so special. With higher gravity affecting the body, it was always under pressure evenly on every part. Ren should be able to grow to Guy's physical prowess and then keep going further without stopping. The seals would always push his body just slightly beyond its limits, allowing for a slow, constant growth even if he did not exercise. Of course, reaching Guy's level would take him years. He wouldn't be near that level for a long time yet. But the potential of these seals was immense, and Hinata understood just how beneficial they would be for her. She also understood how precious they were and why their existence had to stay quiet. Everybody would covet them if they knew about them. Something that could allow a ninja to physically grow with no limit by simply being alive? Ren would have kidnappers after him from every major and minor village alike, Konoha included. It sounded far too good to be true, and Ren was still doubtful he happened to make something so convenient. There was bound to be some kind of problem in the future that would limit the growth. No way he could just become Saitama. The world was not so easy. Then again, Kaguya was physically much stronger than even Guy. She tanked Naruto's mountain-shattering punch with her face when he was in his 6th path Kurama Chakra mode Sen, just a cheater bullshit given to him for free by his sugar daddy Higoromo, and it did not even leave a small bruise on her. Her body was also evolved to that level by the chakra fruit. She didn't get it through training, so, technically it was just a chakra evolution of her physique. Ren's seals did something similar, just in a very, very, very slow way. So, maybe? A man can dream, right? Speaking of Naruto, Ren's thoughts were suddenly interrupted as something orange sat next to him and rudely poked him in the arm. If you aren't going to eat that ramen, just give it to me, uncle. Ren's eye twitched. Chapter 17, ch 17, Naruto Uzumaki. Ren turned toward the voice, only to see Naruto Uzumaki. This was actually the first time he interacted with him. For various reasons, he tried to avoid Naruto like a plague, but having a late lunch at Ichiraku was clearly tempting fate. He knew about Naruto and saw him quite frequently in the village. He just never approached him. Ren was about to refuse the kid's generous offer to take care of his ramen for him, when Naruto's expression brightened as if a light bulb had just switched on in his head before he loudly exclaimed while rudely pointing at Ren, "Ah, you are the suspicious uncle who escorts that weird girl to the academy." SUS suspicious uncle. Ren almost choked on his spit, his mind stuttering worse than Hinata when he first met her, while the cute waitress behind the counter started madly giggling. Naruto didn't mind the atmosphere, though. Ugh, hi Baba? That's her name, right? The really gloomy kid who faints a lot. Hearing him, Ren involuntarily snickered, his previous dismay momentarily forgotten. Oh, what Ren wouldn't give to have Hinata sit right next to him at this moment so he could see her expression upon hearing that. Now, he could correct Naruto, but where would be the fun in that? Yes, hi Baba. Ren nodded, having a fierce inner battle against the massive grin that wanted to split his face. Is she alright? She isn't sick, is she? Come to think of it, she doesn't faint that much anymore. Not since you started to bring her to the academy. Did you do something weird to her to fix her, uncle? Naruto asked as he threw Ren a suspicious look. There was a lot to unpack in the word vomit he had just heard. He was sure he was accused of something ridiculous too, but Ren decided it was not worth the brainpower to think about it and ignored most of the brat's questions. Instead, he focused on the most important issue. Why are you calling me uncle? I am 17. He asked Naruto with a raised eyebrow. Huh? Naruto scrunched his face as if thinking too deeply about something while staring at Ren. Eventually, he just tilted his head in puzzlement. Are you sure, brat? Ren retorted with a smile, making Naruto scowl at being called that. Here, have my ramen and shut up for a second. Ren said in a friendly tone and rolled his eyes as Naruto instantly cheered up, impatiently grabbing chopsticks. You are not that bad. Naruto grabbed the bowl in front of Ren and put it in front of himself before digging in. Naruto probably did not remember, but they actually went to the same orphanage. Back then, Ren had just found himself in Narutoverse as a 3-year-old kid, so he was obviously scared shitless. He didn't dare to approach Naruto. They had been in the same orphanage for 4 years, but Ren never even spoke to him. He was too afraid of Danzo. The old mummy could not get his hands on Naruto, but Ren imagined that having Naruto's childhood friend under his command was probably one of Danzo's wet dreams. Ren decided to avoid that scenario by simply not becoming said childhood friend. Then again, maybe Ren just had a too vivid imagination. Maybe it would have been fine. Still, befriending the village pariah, and a Jinchuriki to boot, was not a smart thing to do. It would have put Ren on the radar of far too many influential people, and he wanted to avoid it. He promised himself that he would make it up to Naruto later. Only, Naruto didn't need help. The kid didn't have as hard of a life as the fanfictions tried to make people believe. Deep down, Ren expected Naruto to have a miserable life. But that wasn't exactly the case. There were no beatings or mobs. and when Ren put a bit of thought into it, it made sense. Naruto was a Jinchuriki and nobody knew how the fourth Hokage seal functioned. Jinchuriki, however, were known to go ballistic when angry or threatened. Nobody who knew what was at stake would let Naruto get hurt because nobody knew if it wouldn't make him go all Kyuubi-sama on the village's collective ass. So, Naruto wasn't physically abused. He was mostly just ignored by everyone out of fear. He was like a walking and talking nuclear missile and nobody knew if he would go off at the drop of a hat. Ren knew the seal was safe because that's how it was in the anime. But the villagers? They had no clue. Not even the ninjas knew. And that just made the civilians more uneasy. It was only natural that people would avoid him and try to keep their kids away from him. And no, the shops did not overcharge Naruto either. Ren did see Naruto pay for his groceries a few times and the price was correct. That said, no civilian would have the balls of steel to try something like that in Konoha. Everybody knew that it would make Sarutobi very angry, and while a civilian council did exist, they listened and obeyed their Hokage. After all, nobody wanted to be suddenly disappeared, and if there was one man in the village who could effortlessly disappear people from the comfort of his office, it was the dictator of the village full of hired killers. That said, not even the dictator could force the villagers to be nice to Naruto. Indifference was the limit he could manage. "You are an academy student, right?" Ren asked Naruto, watching him slurp the noodles with gusto. Yeah," Naruto said, barely paying attention to his surroundings as he inhaled the noodles. Ren suddenly smirked, deciding to tease him. "I heard you aren't very bright." That true. That made Naruto stop eating for a moment as he threw Ren a quick irritated look. "Who cares? It's not like some stupid tests would help me become a Hokage." He animatedly protested before stuffing his cheeks with more noodles. Ren snorted but didn't comment further. "Maybe you could ask Hi Baba," he involuntarily snickered again, "for help with the academy work? She is quite smart unlike you." Naruto threw Ren an annoyed look but nodded nonetheless. There. That was the most help Ren could give Hinata. The rest was up to her. Contrary to the popular belief in his previous world, Naruto was not sabotaged in the academy. His abysmal grades were simply because he was stupid as fuck and did not even try learning anything that he deemed unimportant. Not even Mizuki would dare to teach Naruto wrongly, because all it would take was Naruto offhandedly complaining about it once to the Hokage, and Mizuki would have an instant invitation to TNI. The teachers mostly ignored his presence during their lectures, leaving the responsibility for his learning to him. It wasn't illegal, but it was definitely a dick move. And because of that, Naruto formed many bad habits, preferring to skip learning what did not interest him. With nobody to push him to learn, he naturally preferred to play or slack off instead of paying attention to lectures he considered boring. The longer this went on, the more behind he became until he was so behind his peers that not even Irika could help him without Naruto honestly wanting to fix the issue. Which, he didn't. Because he didn't see how knowing how many ninja villages existed would help him become a kick-ass Hokage. After all, he was still just a kid. His answer to Ren's question pretty much perfectly showed his attitude when it came to academics. Worse yet, because of Naruto's status as a Jinchuriki and a Uzumaki, the first year of Taijutsu classes was far too easy for him. He was always either first or second in that class. So, he didn't bother to properly learn the katas. Ren saw that train wreck himself. He was in the academy too back then when this was happening. Why would Naruto put in the effort to learn a proper Taijutsu style when he could just punch his peers in the face or outlast them in the ring thanks to his bullshit endurance? Then, the other kids got older and learned a proper fighting style and Naruto's ranking suffered. He was still in the top 10, though, even with his crap Taijutsu skills. So he still never saw the need to learn proper Taijutsu. Using his natural resilience worked well against the kids in the academy, but real life was going to be very different. Ren hoped Naruto would approach Hinata and she could help him with his basics. But he also kinda didn't think it would happen. Even if Naruto approached her, Ren doubted he would learn from her. Naruto could be extremely determined and focused when something caught his interest. But catching his interest was the problem in the first place. At this stage in his life, he wanted badass cool jutsu. He didn't want to learn how to throw a punch properly. That was not cool. Naruto was a kid. Immature, unruly, free-spirited, one that was very rarely properly disciplined. One that hadn't yet gone through so many life-changing experiences that forced him to grow up like the canon Naruto did. Ren knew Naruto was going to grow up and be great. But the kid was not there just yet. Glancing at the 14-year-old blonde from the corner of his eyes, Ren had to admit, maybe this Naruto would be far more mature and competent by the time he graduated. He would be older than his canon counterpart and he was at the age when kids started maturing fast. It was just a pity Ren could not directly help him. Approaching a Jinchuriki would still make his life troublesome. Not to mention, Ren simply didn't know if making Naruto competent and overpowered wouldn't prematurely set off the Akatsuki. If they sent just 4 of their S-rank ninjas in a serious attempt to capture him before he learned Senjutsu, Naruto would be screwed. And then the world would be screwed shortly after. Ren had no idea what to do about this problem. So, he decided to do nothing for now. Honestly, fuck Sarutobi Hiruzen and his academy reforms. Why couldn't things be simple? Chapter 18, ch 18. An offer Ren can't refuse. Sitting in his office at the Barrier Corps headquarters, Ren was reluctantly dealing with some of his accumulated paperwork. The office was bare bones and seemed not lived in. It wasn't decorated at all. Ren didn't bother. He was at the Barrier Corps only once or twice per week, taking all the work and paperwork that piled up while he didn't come to work and finishing it in 2 to 3 hours tops. And that was only when he didn't feel lazy. Nowadays, sometimes he simply sends a shadow clone in his stead. There wasn't a problem with it yet. The higher UPS did not care as long as the work was done by the end of the week. The Barrier Corps was a very relaxed and leisure workplace for a ninja village. Ren hadn't regretted joining it yet. If big old villains were not going to mess up this world somewhat fiercely in the future, Ren wouldn't have minded spending his life working here. Ren had been learning seals since he was 10. It has been 7 years now and he spent a large portion of his day with his head buried in seal work. He became very good at what he did, so the usual seal repairs around Konoha that even a genin from the Barrier Corps could patch up were no big deal for Ren. And if something important broke, Ren was in a great position because as a fresh genin, he would never be called. That was a job for a jonin. There wasn't much to complain about. The pay was nice and the free time was abundant. Suddenly, the door to Ren's office flew open and a man in baggy clothes and wearing a red bandana walked in with a small scowl as if he owned the place. "Something wrong, Kenji?" Ren politely asked, inwardly sighing. He wasn't friends with his co-workers. At best, they were passing acquaintances and that's how Ren liked it. Kenji was still a genin despite being in his mid-20s. He was rude but competent enough. He didn't like Ren much ever since Ren was promoted. Ren tried to keep his distance because the reason Kenji hadn't been promoted yet despite being competent enough was that he tried to steal the seal designs of one of their superiors. Well, the actual reason was that he got caught, but nevertheless, that didn't sound like a good prospect for friendship to Ren, who constantly invented new seals. "This dude wants something from ya." Kenji pointed at a 16-year-old ginger-haired boy who stood behind him, fidgeting a bit while wearing the uniform of the intelligence department. Ren gave the boy a quick once-over, instantly classifying him as a new genin, probably an errand boy still. "Hello, Mr. Dude." He smiled, trying to ease some of the boy's tension. "How can I help you?" "Inoichi Yamanaka sent me. He would like to see you, sir," the boy informed Ren, making him surprised. Ren felt a bit nervous. He knew it was probably nothing serious, but getting an invitation to the TNI for a chat didn't sound very reassuring. He hadn't done anything treasonous in the past month or so either. With a sigh, Ren stood up and silently prepared his experimental transportation seal in his pocket. It wasn't finished work and using it in combat was impossible, but he had already tested it with clones and the seal could transport him away all the way to the land of waves where he left a beacon seal when he was there as Kurene's reinforcements a few weeks ago. It just needed around 20 seconds of concentration. His very own inferior high-ration knockoff. "Senpai, you haven't done anything stupid recently, have you?" Kenji chimed in with a grin, happy at the chance to get some prime gossip. Ren blandly looked at him and dryly said, "I gave the Uzumaki boy a bowl of ramen, but I swear it was a complete accident." Kenji snorted at that. "No wonder the head of the intelligence department wants to see you. That's practically a terrorist act." Ren rolled his eyes and looked at the messenger boy. "Let's go. The sooner I get this over with the better," he said with a sigh. "Mr. Yamanaka, you wanted to see me?" Ren asked as he walked into Inoichi's office. The man stood up and gestured with a welcoming smile at the empty seat in front of his desk. "Call me Inoichi, please. I guess this is not an interrogation, then," Ren thought as he sat down. "What can I do for you?" Inoichi stayed silent for a moment, tapping his pen on the table. Then, he suddenly spoke in a measured tone. "I heard you were looking into mental techniques and yin release." Ren owlishly blinked. He did ask around for information about these things, so he wasn't surprised the man knew about it. But as far as he knew, there was nothing wrong about it. It's not as if Yamanaka's had a patent on techniques affecting the mind. It was only their clan jutsu that was off limits. "Is that a problem?" Ren asked in a puzzled voice. "I can assure you I wasn't looking into your clan techniques." No, that's not why I mentioned it. Rest assured." Inoichi said, "I heard and confirmed that you did wonders for Hinata Hayaga as her tutor. My daughter, Ino, is in a similar spot." The man looked Ren in the eyes. Suddenly, Ren really did not like where this was going. He'd prefer the interrogation, to be honest. "I have no idea what to do with the girl. The world of ninjas is a dangerous place, but my little angel is not taking it seriously at all." He sighed. "Yet, I can't bring myself to destroy her peaceful childhood." "So, you want me to be the villain, is that it?" Ren frowned. He had a hard time staying polite and keeping himself from deadpanning at the man. Inoichi wanted him to tutor his daughter like he did for Hinata. Ino was the same as in canon, a fangirl obsessed over Suzuki. She was an immature kid who was dieting, not taking her kunoichi lessons seriously, and thinking the world was full of roses and sunshine because of how spoiled and sheltered she was by Inoichi. If Ren had misgivings about accepting Hinata as his pupil, then he had 10 times worse misgivings about taking an Ino. He could just tell she would be an obnoxious little shit. On top of that, dealing with her Uchiha obsession was going to drive him mad in short order. He really didn't feel like doing it. Probably seeing the reluctance hidden on Ren's face, Inoichi decided to give him the proverbial carrot. "I wouldn't mind sharing some theories and basic yin exercises if you took in my daughter as your pupil. It won't be anything secret or anything that could be termed as clan jutsu, just exercises for Yamanaka kids. But I can guarantee you that you won't find anything better in the village." Hearing his offer, Ren inwardly whined like a kid who was just told there would be no candy before he did his homework. Ren needed info about yin release and how it tied into the mind. He wanted to use seals to alter the memory sharing component of the shadow clones, but he needed a starting point. More information on how the yin aspect of chakra worked. Unfortunately, the information about that was not readily available. In fanfics, every kid and their mother knew yin and yang releases, but in reality, these were both high-end, top-secret, very niche things that not even many elite jonins knew about. Ino Shikacho clans were in a unique position when it came to yin and yang release, but they were not sharing. The memory function of shadow clones was taxing on Ren's mind. Even with just 3 clones, it was tough to deal with over 10 hours of fuinjutsu work memory feedback per clone. Most of these memories were useless anyway. The important bits could be compressed into maybe 15 minutes of memories. Ren wanted to make his clones able to select which memories to send over without needing to feed him memories of hours of busy work and giving him headaches. But he still didn't want to deal with Ino. How about this? You are invited to our family dinner tomorrow. Properly think it over and give me your answer during it. Inoichi happily smiled, contrasting with Ren's sour expression. The bastard knew that Ren didn't want to accept the offer, but he also knew that it was too good to refuse. So, with a forced polite smile, Ren nodded, making a deal with the devil. For he was sure trying to wrangle the spoiled Yamanaka princess was going to be pure hell. Chapter 19 Ch 19 Ren knocked on Inoichi's door, feeling a bit nervous about attending their family dinner. The door opened and Ren's eyes fell on a 14-year-old girl with long flowing blonde hair and pretty blue eyes. Ren had to admit she was beautiful. And he promptly mentally winced, reminding himself she was 14 and most likely annoying as fuck. Still, his heart started beating slightly faster. Oh, hello. Ino's cheek became red as she blatantly checked him out, and despite his feelings about tutoring her, Ren couldn't help but feel a bit of pride. Naruto might not appreciate Ren's looks, calling him an uncle of all things as if he looked old, but Ren didn't look half bad. Thanks to his gravity seals, his lean body was perfectly toned and he thought he looked quite handsome with his shaggy and spiky blonde hair falling around his face onto his shoulders, long enough to reach his upper back. His clear pale blue eyes had quite a few of his female classmates swooning in the academy, even though he tried to keep himself in the middle of the pack and didn't go for the top spot. Much to his dismay, he couldn't see them as anything but kids back then, so it was a very uncomfortable experience. Ren, right? Dad said you were going to come. Come in. I am Ino. She grinned and opened the door wider as she introduced herself. Yes, thanks, Ren awkwardly said as he entered the house. From what he could tell, the girl had no idea about Inoichi's offer just yet, and he wasn't looking forward to that discussion. There was a reason why Inoichi hadn't told her yet. She was bound to take it wrongly. Following Ino to the kitchen after taking off his shoes, Ren saw an older blonde woman busying herself at the stove who reminded him of older Ino, and he felt genuinely jealous of Inoichi. His wife was gorgeous. Welcome. My name is Nariko. It's nice to meet you, the woman said with a welcoming smile. I hope Ino wasn't rude. Ino whined while playfully rolling her eyes at the woman with a grin. He is a big boy. He can take it. She threw Ren a mischievous look, making him snort. I am Ren. He looked at Nariko, thank you for having me, and politely bowed according to the customs of this world. Oh, hello, Ren. Just then, Inoichi entered the kitchen. Noticing the good atmosphere, he instantly went for the killing blow like a true shinobi. Ino, I decided to hire Ren here to help you become a better kunoichi. If he agrees, that is. He threw Ren a questioning look, but Ren didn't manage to even open his mouth before empty Ino erupted. Wait, what? Why would I need to be taught by him? Isn't he like a genin or something? He can't be that much older than me, she exclaimed with a glare. I age gracefully. Ren raised his eyebrow at her, not being bothered by her rude attitude. Hearing that, Ino actually smiled for a moment, but then she remembered she was supposed to be angry and gave both Inoichi and Ren a heated glare again. I do just fine in the academy. I don't need a tutor. What would Suzuki say if he found out? I would be a laughing stock. She animatedly waved her hands through the air to emphasize her point. Oh, it was obvious to Ren that Inoichi deliberately chose this moment for this discussion, and since the man wanted some drama before dinner, Ren was going to oblige. You mean you aren't one now? He asked, tilting his head a bit, and both Inoichi and Nariko's jaws dropped to the floor. It gave pause to Ino too, before her rage came back with the full force of a tsunami. Her face became red from anger and she was about to shout at Ren, but he just sharply lifted his palm, stopping her in her tracks. You love the Uchiha, right? Ren abruptly changed the topic, making Ino confused. Yeah, and you know his goal is to eventually bring back his clan, right? Yes. Ino blushed a bit at that. I am going to help him with it. She gave Ren a challenging look, just daring him to say anything against it. Ren smiled, confusing her. She was just making it so easy for him. And I heard you constantly compete with other girls for his attention, neglecting your training. Ren nodded to himself as if confirming something. Ino just crossed her arms and huffed, I need to keep my figure. I can't become all muscly. Suzuki wouldn't like that. Beauty takes time and effort. She said as if it was the most obvious thing in the world and gave Ren a look. Oh, Kogoromo, help me with this one. Ren subtly took a deep breath. Why couldn't he just write her off as a lost cause and move on? Glancing at Inoichi, who returned an embarrassed smile, Ren inwardly sighed. Ah, yes. The Yin Chakra exercises and theories. He was starting to wonder if they would be worth the suffering. Outwardly, Ren just calmly chuckled at her. See? You totally are a laughingstock. He shook his head. Seeing that the girl didn't like that very much, he quickly continued, you do realize that Suzuki will never pay attention to a weak girl, right? That made Ino freeze as she blinked at Ren in incomprehension. The boy doesn't care about your hair or figure. He doesn't care how much you pine after him. What he needs to re-establish his clan is a powerful kunoichi that will ensure the potential of his future children. Ren shrugged, telling the girl how the freaking reality actually worked. Something Inoichi should have done long ago. Weren't Yamanakas supposed to be good at creating profiles and analyzing people or something? So far, Ren was not impressed. Suzuki was definitely going to have his pick from the available Jonin-level kunoichi in the village as long as he didn't pull the running to Orakai Daddy act. But Ren wasn't going to tell the girl that. He wanted to motivate her, not crush her resolve. He won't pay attention to girls right now. No matter what you do or how pretty you are, he needs to train and become a strong ninja first. It's the only thing on his mind right now. Ren told her, but when the time comes and Uchiha decides he wants a girl, you better be at least a solid jonin or there is no hope for you. Get that, Blondie? Ino didn't answer. She just stayed silent for a few moments with a frown on her lips before she unsurely turned toward her father and subduedly asked, is that true? I am afraid so, Pumpkin. Inoichi gave her a sad smile. Uchiha-kun is traumatized. He will not accept a weak woman because deep down, he is afraid to lose his family again. Oh, my dear lord. It is sappy bullshit like this that made Ino so obsessed with the boy in the first place. Ren covertly gave Inoichi a dry, unamused look, wondering if the bastard was trying to make his job harder on purpose. Ino squealed, and Ren almost groaned as her mind obviously flew to the La La Land again. Deciding she needed some rain on her parade to be brought back to the real world, Ren quickly spoke again, not to mention, there is exactly zero chance that Suzuki would have only one wife. One woman is insufficient to re-establish a clan. If he is serious about it, he will take at the very least 3 but 5 or 6 is more likely. Ino looked as if he had just told her the world was ending and Suzuki was gay. She was totally out of it, her face pale from the sheer horror she felt. But Ren was not lying. The village would not allow the Uchiha clan to die out. They might not order Suzuki to take a wife. They had no right to do it. But they will definitely use every trick in the book, underhanded or not, to get him interested in loyal women and have some hanky-panky with them. In Boruto, Suzuki had only Sakura. But that Suzuki was on a level above Hashirama and absolutely nobody could tell him what to do. Maybe Naruto could but he would not do it. Oh, and that Suzuki was clearly gay. Because imagine marrying a girl, knocking her up, and then fucking right off for 12 whole years. Was Ren actually supposed to believe Suzuki truly loved Sakura from that? He probably just married her because he felt sorry for her. He had to make new Uchihas. And Sakura was so hell-bent on the role that she would forgive him even shoving Chidori through her chest. It was simply convenient and Suzuki probably took it as atonement for his sins and the pain he caused the team. Not to mention, this was the dude who wanted to re-establish his clan but he only had one kid with the supposed love of his life. And he never had other kids with other women as far as Ren knew, but he wasn't a Boruto fan. He only watched the beginning so he might be wrong. But as far as he knew, and from how Suzuki acted in canon, he could only conclude that Suzuki batted for the same team. A sad thing for the Uchiha clan. May they rest in peace. No, he can't have multiple wives. Ino exclaimed, but Inoichi just compassionately put his hand on her shoulders, making her fall silent. Funny thing, monogamy was not mandatory in this world. Christianity did not exist. And many influential people had multiple women. Even the daimyo had one official main wife and then he had multiple concubines. The reason why ninjas usually married only one woman was very simple. They married kunoichi. If they didn't want to wake up castrated or not at all with their throat slit, they were not going to cheat on their wife who had superpowered senses and ninja observation skills. Ren actually did know a few guys who had multiple lovers too. Nobody talked much about it. But there was no law prohibiting it. But honestly, one woman was a lot of effort and time investment. Ninjas usually did not really have the time for more with all the training, missions, and other work they had to do in their day-to-day time. As Naraz would say, it was just too troublesome. Many kept their relationships on the level of casual hookups at best. With the high risk of death, the stress, and the trauma their profession usually caused, many ninjas didn't have it in them to get emotionally invested or do something as bothersome as relationships. Suddenly, Ino's downcast expression brightened as she came to some inner conclusion that brought back her resolve. I am going to become so strong that I will win his heart only for myself, Ino proclaimed with determination shining in her eyes, and while Inoichi couldn't be happier that his girl was finally going to take her training seriously, Ren wanted to put his head in his hands. She didn't get it at all. The girl was clearly delusional and he will have to deal with her. Truly, Hinata was a treasure. Oh, shit. I am going to need to explain this to Hinata, aren't I? Ren realized with dread filling him. Maybe the girls will be friendly? He really hoped so. Chapter 20, ch 20. Two students meeting the next day after the awkward family dinner, Ren picked Ino up at her house in the afternoon, before leading her to Training Ground 41 where Hinata was already supposed to be waiting for him. They arrived, and Ren smiled when he saw the Hyaga girl already doing her daily dose of physical exercises. Oh, she protested at first, saying that Ren was not doing them either. And sure enough, he was not. The gravity seals would make his body strong without them, but he was also a hypocrite and proud of it. So, his dear student whose ninja skills focused on taijutsu was going to do her exercises. He just told Hinata that once she got a student of her own, she could tell him or her what to do. The girl was all sorts of pouty that day, but she begrudgingly listened, and there was no problem with her ever since. This bitch, Ino whispered in surprise for the whole clearing to hear when she spotted Hinata, and Ren instantly facepalmed. Of course, his hopes that everything would go smoothly and the girls would get on well were dashed almost in the very first second he brought Ino to her first training session and had her meet Hinata. How could it possibly go any other way, right? Just his luck. Did I do something to make you angry? Hinata asked with scrunched eyebrows, wondering what Ino's problem was. It was a good question because Ren had no freaking idea either. I don't know. Did you? Suzuki started paying attention to you recently. I don't know what you have done to bewitch Ino put her hands on her hips, and Ren was surprised she wasn't growling at Hinata. When he heard her reason for acting out, he let out a groan. Of course, it had to be something childishly inane. He does, Hinata asked, interrupting Ino's tirade while being completely taken aback. Seeing that Hinata did not even notice the massive issue plaguing her mind as of late, Ino got even angrier, and Ren knew he had to intervene. Alright, break it off. Don't start growling and biting her, Ino. You are supposed to be a kunoichi, not a stray cat. He put his hand on her head and roughly ruffled her hair, redirecting her anger at himself in an attempt to control the situation. Hey, stop that, Ino shouted, trying to get away, but Ren was a bit too strong, so his hand stayed on her head. Ren hummed, raising his eyebrow at her. Say sorry. She was so going to argue. Her expression clearly stated that. Her eyes narrowed and her mouth was already opening, but Ren put a bit more force on her head in warning with a bit too friendly smile on his face, and fortunately, her Yamanaka brain kicked in as she realized the message. Not wanting to get her hair viciously ruffled, Ino turned to Hinata, and with a big scowl, she gritted out, sorry. No problem. Hinata nodded in understanding, and Ren felt proud of her. Always so kin bimbo. She added with a friendly smile of her own, making Ren's mind freeze. What did I do to deserve this? He abruptly blurted out and looked toward the blue sky in exasperation. And here he thought it would be Ino causing the problems. Will you please behave? At least until the training session ends? Both of you, Ren asked in an annoyed tone, giving the two girls a serious look. They hadn't gotten even to the introductions yet, and the two girls were already on each other's throat. Since the peaceful approach was clearly not going to work with them, Ren decided to go with the law of the jungle. He turned toward Ino. You can piss Hinata off afterward, Ino. She will beat you down like a misbehaving stepchild, and that will be that. He was blatantly leading her on, and he truly hoped she would catch on. Alas, he was left disappointed. She? Beat me? Please. She had just recently learned how to speak without stuttering. Ino mockingly said, again loud enough for Hinata to hear. From what Ren knew, Hinata was usually paired with boys for spars in the academy. It might sound unjust, but she was a Hyaga, and they were known to train exclusively in taijutsu. Putting her against girls would be just unfair. So, Ren surmised that Ino did not know how she compared to Hinata, since she likely never faced her in the academy. While Ino did not catch on to the direction of Ren's previous provocation, Hinata was a veteran of getting teased by him during training. She quickly realized where he was going with this, and before Ren could propose a spar, she decided to do it herself. So you wouldn't mind a spar, right? Her friendly smile was still on her face as she ducked her head, touching her index fingers together in feigned bashfulness. Ren gave the girl a blank look at that. It was obvious to him she was faking it. No. Ino was about to refuse when Ren shrugged and decided to just go with the flow. Great. I didn't want your first training to be hard, but since you two girls get along so well, maybe having a manly exchange of fists will make your flames of youth burn brightly. He cheerily told them, making Hinata look at him as if he grew another head, while Ino was standing there with her mouth open at being press-ganged into a spar. You have 5 minutes for warm-up exercises. Get on with it. The spar will start after the 5 minutes are up. He waved them off and pulled out his fuinjutsu notebook. 5 minutes later, the girls were warmed up and raring to go, standing a few meters apart from each other in the clearing with Ren between them. Okay. No killing or crippling blows. He wasn't afraid of that happening. Hinata was too soft-hearted while Ino was too weak, but he had to say it. And begin. Ren shouted before jumping back to give the girls enough space for their fight. Normally, Hinata would hold back and wait for her opponent to attack, but she seemed a bit too angry today and instantly rushed at Ino, who was completely surprised by the sudden aggression from the usually timid girl. She tried to put her arms up into a guard, but because of Hinata's training with Ren, she was far faster than she showed in the academy. Hinata's fist flowed right around Ino's guard, so quickly that Ino couldn't even respond before she was slugged right in her face. Hinata didn't even bother to use the gentle fist. Ren olishly blinked, rubbing his jaw in bewilderment. He did expect the result, but he didn't think it would be a one-hit knockout. Seems like Ino will be much more work than I assumed. He inwardly sighed. Did I hit her too hard? Hinata quietly but worriedly asked as she came to stand next to Ren, and they both looked at Ino, who was still somewhat out of it as she lay on the ground. She will be fine. This is exactly what she needs. Ren told her in the same volume, ensuring that Ino would not overhear them. She needs to realize how weak she is. That's the first step. Hinata nodded and moved closer to Ren, leaning on his shoulder. So, should I hit her again, then? She innocently asked. Ren sighed and looked toward the sky again. He was starting to understand Kakashi's attitude. Chapter 21, Ch 21, Joys of Teaching. It has been several days since Ino's first training and she was slowly getting used to it. After the first day when Hinata sucker punched her in the face, she had her reality check and grudgingly accepted that she wasn't as good as she thought. She even stopped complaining much. Ren took that as a win. The girl wasn't so bad. Oh, she was still annoying at times but she was slowly growing on Ren. Like fungus. The girls formed a strange form of rivalry and he bemoaned having his own version of Naruto and Sasuke under his tutelage. He had to intervene a few times but by now, they started to understand his rules and mostly abided by them. The rivalry was good, but it shouldn't cross into animosity just because one of them did better than the other for the moment and Ren had to do a bit of policing to ensure it stayed healthy. Ino was way weaker, after all, and he didn't want her to be bitter because of it. He wanted her motivated to improve. It put a bit of pressure on Ren, too. He spent his evenings thinking about how to help Ino level the playing field, but so far, the Akugan has been proving to be just unreasonably good when it came to learning how to use chakra. Fortunately, Ino also already knew tree walking due to her clan training so she was on water walking right now. But unlike Hinata, it was slow going for the blonde girl. So far, Ren had nothing outside of a harebrained stupid idea from Potterverse fanfic whose name he didn't even remember about using Ino's Yamanaka techniques to train in her mindscape. The problem was he didn't know if it was even feasible. Sighing, Ren gestured at the girls who were running laps around the pond that it was enough. They approached him, Hinata as cool as a cucumber, while Ino was panting like a dog. He quickly hid his smile. He still remembered when Hinata was left in a similar state after running but right now, the girl was milking it for all it was worth, throwing Ino a teasing look and making sure the blonde saw it. Only Ino's panting prevented her lips from stretching into a highly annoyed scowl and starting a verbal tirade. Ren gave Ino a few minutes to calm down while having Hinata practice the second step of Raisnan. Fortunately, for Ren's mental health, the girl didn't finish the exercise in a moment like the last time. Ren came to understand it happened mostly because the first step was about chakra control and as a Hyaga, Hinata had a leg up in that. Once she knew the trick to it, which she could see with her Byakugan, it was easy for her. The second step, however, was much more demanding. It required the user to be able to generate a certain force with his chakra, to tightly condense it to generate the grinding pressure. But Hinata was neither a ninja with decades worth of experience like Kakashi or Jiraiya nor did she have as dense chakra as Naruto. She had a lot of trouble learning the second step because her chakra just wasn't very dense or powerful yet, but a little bit of struggle was good for her. She practiced with the rubber ball for days now and her chakra was slowly becoming better, more dense. That would help her immensely in her life as a ninja later on. Ren came to understand during his stay in this world that Madara and Hashirama did not have that much more chakra than others. The body could contain only so much chakra when it came to quantity. They simply had so dense chakra, so powerful chakra, that it might as well be ocean compared to the cup of water your usual jonin had. For example, that wooden umbu guy whose name Ren already forgot, could make a tree by using 1% of his chakra. But Hashirama's chakra was so powerful that his 1% could summon an entire forest of poisonous trees. It was simply an issue of quality. But ninjas had no idea how to improve the quality of their chakra other than use it a lot, which was extremely slow. Ren had an inkling the solution would lay in yin and yang release, but his research into it was just in the beginning stages. When Ino had enough rest, she approached Ren and Hinata. I just remembered. My dad told me to give this to you. Ino gave him a scroll. What's that? Hinata curiously asked as Ren pocketed the scroll. Just some theories and exercises on yin chakra. Ren waved her off and she stopped asking, understanding he would not be answering her. Now, then, Ren said and created a shadow clone. Ino, you are going to fight my clone and try to score a hit. He gave her an encouraging smile as the clone beckoned her to follow him, sporting a cheerful grin and throwing a paint bomb up and down in his right hand. Oh, the girl had no idea what was about to hit her. Wait, is that? Hinata's eyes widened. She probably did not think she would ever be on the spectating side of this exercise. Yes. Ren nodded, patting a spot on the grass next to him in an invitation, which she quickly took. Oh, I will enjoy watching this. Hinata licked her lips with an eager expression as she approached him and Ren had to use his chakra to hide a blush. She was starting to become sexy. And oh, how it burned him inside to think that. But Hinata's bluish-black hair now sported blunt bangs covering her forehead while the rest of her straight hair started reaching her shoulders. It wasn't just the visual aspect that was good when it came to her hair. Ren said a few random things to her during her training, advice and details he noticed and thought could help her, and she seemed to take one of them to heart with her hairstyle choice. Due to her blunt bangs, her hair framing her face, and her tendency to duck her head, her hair could hide her eyes quite well, which could be invaluable for a Hyaga ninja. The initial few seconds her opponent wouldn't realize they were fighting a Hyaga and haphazardly engaged her in a taijutsu battle because she was a girl could prove very fatal for them with her gentle fist. Hinata's hair reminded him a bit of Samui, just in a different color. Her dark hair contrasted very well with her pale complexion and, wait, did she start wearing lipstick? He mentally furrowed his eyebrows while outwardly keeping his expression calm. Honestly, he hadn't noticed. And he was supposed to be the observant one here. Damn, good for Naruto. he thought, hoping the kid would appreciate how much effort she was putting into looking good. They sat next to each other on the grass, Hinata still trying to do something with her chakra to the rubber ball while Ren had his fuinjutsu notebook open now, but his attention was more focused on the spar between his clone and Ino that was just starting. Ino did the same exact thing Hinata did during her first try, just in a lot bolder manner. She ran straight at Ren's clone, her fist cocked back. The result didn't change and Ren enjoyed the squeal of horror as Ino found herself covered in pink color from her head to her toes. Naturally, his clone couldn't just let it go and started teasing her, using the tried and proven method of comparing her to Sakura, which turned the squeal into a scream of impotent rage as she tried to rush Ren's clone again. The pink became mixed with neon red. Ren heard Hinata giggling and he couldn't help but snicker himself. He was almost certain the next color to be added to the mix was yellow. His clone was clearly going for a very hot combination of colors to fit Ino's fiery attitude. After having a good laugh, Ren glanced at Hinata. Speaking of Naruto, I met your classmate a few days ago at the Ichiraku ramen stand. Ren idly breached the topic. Is that why he asked me for help with the academy stuff? Hinata blandly asked, quickly putting two and two together. Seeing Ren nod in affirmation, she huffed, I had to refuse. Why? Ren turned his bewildered gaze away from the entertaining spar and toward her. My father forbade me to interact with him. Hinata sighed, biting her lower lip and clutching the rubber ball in her hands as she refused to return Ren's look. I'd rather not receive his punishment again. Oh, Ren inwardly facepalmed. He had totally forgotten about that. Sorry, I did something unnecessary. Wryly smiling, Ren apologized, realizing he meddled somewhere he wasn't needed nor wanted. It's all right, Hinata said, and her hair covered her face, making Ren unable to tell how she truly felt about it. He really didn't like that. Even called me stuck up. She chuckled in a self-depreciating way and Ren felt very bad. This was the problem with somebody who has foreknowledge meddling. He meant well but the circumstances were different and he didn't take that into account, therefore, fucking things up. An awkward silence spread between him and Hinata as they watched Ino get embarrassed in cosplay as a human canvas for modern art. She didn't realize it but her forehead now had I love a duck butt written on it, and Ren surmised that she was going to go ballistic after she returned home today and had a look at the mirror. Because Ren was not going to tell her. It was funnier that way. Who knows? Maybe it would cure her of her duck butt obsession. Seeing it lifted his spirit a bit, so he decided to start a conversation again and try to get Hinata's focus away from the previous topic. By the way, did your father mention something about me getting another student? Hinata turned to him and tilted her head. No, why? I just expected to be called to explain why I am not putting all my attention on your training by now. Ren hummed. Father does not care. Hinata rolled her eyes, but her tone was a bit sullen, making Ren wince. Another miss. He was on a roll today, wasn't he? I am sorry. He grumpily sighed. But Hinata just chuckled. It's all right. Her eyes narrowed and gained a strong determined glint. I will get ridiculously powerful and then I will punch him in the face, she said, reminding him a bit of the resolution Ino made during the dinner. Ren had to hide his smile with his notebook. He now understood why so many people liked teaching. The thought that this confidence in the usually timid girl was inspired by him was very heartwarming. The good feelings did not last long as Hinata's face suddenly fell. Is it wrong that despite how he treats me, I still love him? She quietly and unsurely asked, ducking her head. No. Ren gently patted her head with a fond smile before turning back toward the spar. I am proud of you. He said the words that made Hinata's heart flutter. Thank you, she whispered, keeping her head ducked to hide her blush and happy grin with her hair. The best light novels are waiting for you here. Don't miss out. Subscribe on Infinite Novel now. Chapter 22, ch 22, meeting a bogeyman. Another few days passed and Ino started to notice the small progress she was making. Ren still remembered her jumping up and down in glee when she came to the training one day, shouting about how she beat Kiba on the track field in the academy during a running competition. Later on, Hinata told Ren that Kiba was ill and felt really sick that day, but Ren wasn't going to rain on Ino's parade. He let the girl enjoy it. She was improving, after all. He was so proud that he gave the girls a technique on hair manipulation he invented in the academy. He had a lot of time to play around with chakra back then and nothing to do during the lectures. So, he tried to replicate Jiraiya's hair techniques. He figured out how to grow his hair quickly, how to harden or sharpen them, but he failed to figure out how to shoot them like needles. And then he found fuinjutsu and he never really finished his hair techniques, now that he thought about it. With a sigh, Ren called a waiter and ordered 2 sticks of dango for himself and a box of 9 sticks as a takeout. He was trying a new dango shop for lunch today. But back to his pupils, he promised Hinata these techniques weeks ago but he kinda forgot. So, he had to use the excuse that her hair was too short for them until recently. It was bullshit and sadly, she was going to realize that in the future. But that was a problem for the future Ren, and only if it was brought up by her. He hoped she would forget. Fortunately, a part of the reason he gave them the techniques was that he needed to go on another mission tomorrow so the girls would have a week or so of self-study. He was really curious how far they would get with the technique during his absence. Heh. He chuckled as he thought of Ino's expression upon receiving the technique and learning what it was supposed to do. He had probably become her favorite person. After Suzuki, of course. Ren would bet that Ino was going to spend every waking moment practicing it, if only to make her hair look prettier. A fond smile appeared on his lips. Ren's good mood was suddenly interrupted when a one-eyed old man with only one arm came and put a plate with 2 dangos on Ren's table before quietly sitting opposite him, making Ren blink at him. "Aren't you a bit too old and crippled to be working here as a waiter, Grandpa?" Ren smiled, but inwardly he wanted to be anywhere but here. Danzo Shinura. Why the hell was his childhood bogeyman here? He still remembered the nights full of nightmares when he was a child about how Danzo would kidnap him. For years, he feared it. But with each year, Ren became less and less fearful, and more weary. He remembered being tired of being afraid. Thinking back, he did go to the same orphanage as Naruto, so it was probably well monitored, so Danzo couldn't most likely do anything. And when Ren joined the academy, he kept himself in the middle of the pack. Neither disappointing nor praiseworthy. Just another generic civilian-born orphan ninja. Danzo probably didn't have a reason to approach him until now. So, why the hell is he here? Ren mentally went through the possible reasons until his mind stopped on one possibility. During the mission in the Land of Waves, he found a document stating that Gato was supplying somebody in Konoha with talented orphans for money. Gato probably kept it as a blackmail, but Ren knew that the document was not worth the paper it was written on. So, he didn't bother with it. Neither the Hokage nor the daimyo would do anything about it anyway. Whoever was buying the kids, and even then it was obvious to Ren that it was Danzo, never signed anything himself. Everything was done by a proxy. Well, no matter. It wasn't like Ren was afraid of the man anymore. He was still cautious, and there was no way Ren would be meeting his eyes anytime soon, but that was just common sense, not fear. The man did possess Shisui's Mangekyo, after all. Fortunately, he would need eye contact to use it. "I take it you know who I am, then," Danzo stated. The man's eyebrow didn't even slightly twitch at the provocation. He was a ninja longer than Ren lived. He wouldn't break his composure because of some childish insult. Ren clicked his tongue. There went his peaceful lunch. He had to give it to Danzo. Ninjas in a dango shop within a ninja village? Ren never suspected a thing up until the moment Danzo showed up. But for this to work, the shopkeeper would have also needed to be one of Danzo's. Ren regretfully glanced at the dango on the table. This shop was famous for its dango, and he was so looking forward to it. "You can eat it. It's not poisoned." Ren chuckled. "I don't trust you." Danzo nodded and took one dango stick, taking a bite. "I paid for that," Ren dryly said, before sighing. "Well, whatever." He decided to just go along with it and took the other stick of dango as he put a paper in the middle of the table. Danzo looked at the paper but kept his composure and just turned back toward Ren and raised his eyebrow. "An exploding tag. MHM. This one can level this entire building," Ren leisurely said, and continued to eat the dango as if he hadn't just stated he put an explosive within arm's reach of the Konoha's council elder. "Just a precaution. I heard you are not a man to be trifled with. Besides, you brought your bodyguards, and that makes me feel uneasy." Ren glanced over the room. He counted 6, but there were probably more of them hidden, all on guard and prepared to pounce at him. Yikes. Maybe Ren was just imagining it, but there was just a teeny little bit of respect that was missing before in Danzo's expression now. "You would blow yourself up, and why wouldn't I?" Ren asked with an amused smile, preparing to spew the bullshit of a lifetime. "It's for my will of fire." "I see," Danzo impassively said. Ren was a bit confused but shrugged it off. These words worked almost all the time, even though he didn't think they had a proper unified meaning. They meant whatever the speaker wanted them to mean. It was a truly convenient phrase. "Nevertheless, I came bearing an offer to you. There is a special secret division of ninjas under my leadership. We noticed your efforts in the Land of Waves, where you assisted in bringing down Zabuza, and your abilities as a teacher for young ninjas and a seal user. We could use a man of your talents. Join us for the greater good of Konoha and prove your will of fire," Danzo said, almost showing a bit of passion. But Ren just continued looking at him with a dry look for a moment, causing the atmosphere to turn awkward. Inwardly, he was surprised Danzo had the brass balls to speak so casually about Root. Then again, he didn't exactly name it, and Ren had no proof. He could go to the Hokage and repeat this entire conversation to him, and it wasn't like Danzo would get in trouble for it. It would be the word of a councilman against the word of a fresh Chunin. In fact, Ren was certain that if he did that, the whole situation would be spun so against his favor it wouldn't even be funny. Danzo simply held a lot more influence and authority in the village than Ren. People like him had their ways. "No thanks." Ren casually rejected the offer anyway. He had kept a low profile up till now to avoid exactly this kind of situation. But here they were, and this happened anyway. There was no reason to stay polite right now. Danzo wasn't going to disappear into thin air just because Ren wished for it hard enough. It was time to be assertive. Danzo hummed at that answer and gave Ren a thoughtful look, tapping his finger on the table for a few seconds before opening his mouth again. "I am Konoha's elder and can make life very difficult for you in this village." Ren snorted. "Yes. But there is just one small problem with that. I signed up to serve the Hokage. Not you. Unless you have a signed order from the Hokage that says I am under you now." Of course, he wouldn't have that. Root was supposed to be disbanded after the Uchiha massacre, and Danzo was just an advisor. There was no way to get such a document for him. How would he even justify it to the Hokage? He wasn't supposed to have subordinates anymore. Even if he tried to falsify it, there would be no way to falsify the Hokage's special stamp that he kept on himself at all times. Besides, Danzo could make things hard for him. Sure, Promotion was basically unattainable now that Danzo would actively boycott it. With his influence in the council and other Konoha's departments, Ren could save the village from pain and he would still not get the Jonin rank. But the joke was on Danzo. Ren didn't want to be promoted anyway. There were other things Danzo could probably do but nothing overly blatant. Oh, Ren had no doubt that life was going to turn a lot more dangerous for him now. But it was still a better outcome than obediently becoming one of Danzo's little slaves. Thought so. Ren retorted when Danzo stayed silent. Not wanting to hear more threats or attempts to persuade him, he grabbed the exploding tag from the table and sealed it into the seal on his wrist before he gave Danzo a two-fingered salute, and disappeared into a puff of smoke, showing that he was just a shadow clone. Back at the training ground 41, Ren suddenly turned his head toward Konoha, his lips set in a frown before he released a groan and shook his head. He sent the damn clone for his lunch and not only was he late, enjoying dango, but he also gave him a headache. The worst part? His clone forgot to seal the takeout box before he popped. How troublesome. Ren rubbed his neck. Chapter 23, ch 23, Lunatics. All of them. A day had passed since Ren's unwanted meeting with Danzo and he was currently at Konoha's gate, checking his supplies and sealing scrolls to ensure he brought with him everything he needed. The unfortunate part of being a ninja was that if you were sent on some important mission, refusing was not an option. And this mission came from the Barrier Corps themselves. Because of the hostilities between Konoha and Kiri that sparkled in the Land of Waves, the village was putting in the effort to ensure all detection seals along the coastline borders of the Land of Fire were functional. Because of that, the Barrier Corps was spread thin. This would usually be a job for a Jonin from the Barrier Corps, or someone who was Chunin for longer than Ren, but none of these were available right now so Ren had to go. Honestly, he was surprised it took this long for him to be deployed. There were only 300-ish people in the Barrier Corps. Fuinjutsu was not very popular, after all. The village already doubled the required weekly quota of exploding tags each member staying in the village had to produce because so many of them now had to run around the borders, checking these seals. The preparations for war were in full swing. Most ninjas in Konoha did not believe it would go that far. Kiri was in a very bad spot. They definitely could not start another war. But Konoha could not afford not to be prepared. Inwardly nodding to himself when he confirmed he had everything, Ren briefly greeted Izumo and Katetsu, handing them the necessary paperwork that confirmed he was going on a mission, and then he was on his way. The anime always made it seem that travel time was short. During the Land of Wave arc, Team 7 fought the Demon Brothers and it seemed as if the confrontation with Zabuza happened right after that, as if it was on the same day, but it most certainly wasn't. The elemental nations were huge. For example, when Gaara was captured by the Akatsuki, Naruto had to run for 3 days to reach Tsunagakure from Konoha. That always sounded like so little time for Ren in his previous life. After all, if a normal person in his past life ran for 3 days, how far could he possibly get? But his perception was limited back then. He knew that ninjas ran far faster than normal humans but he had no idea just how much faster. A Jonin-level running speed tempo on an emergency mission like that was around 100 km per hour. They could go as fast as a car on a motorway. Ren did not have anything to measure the speed with, but this was his rough estimate of the speed a Jonin could sustain long-term. Counting in the need to sleep, eat, make camp, and the fact that Naruto's team was caught in the sandstorm, they still ran for 15 hours a day for 2 days and spent the last day waiting out the sandstorm. So, based on that, the distance between Konoha and Suna was something like 3,000 kilometers, and Ren was really lowballing it. It was probably more along the lines of 3,500 kilometers. Ren couldn't be sure. It was not as if anybody measured it. This world had just exited its medieval stage, and they were still deep in feudal society. Distance between cities was still measured by how many days you had to walk to reach your destination. The border base Ren was going to for his mission was near the Land of Waves, but even though it was still in the same country, Ren would still have to cross several hundred kilometers. It took a week to reach the Land of Waves from Konoha with civilian walking speed. During Ren's last mission over there, his team still had to run for the entire day to catch up with Kurane and her team. Ren could get there in maybe 17 hours of running if he pushed himself, but he had to be mindful of ambushes so he didn't go as fast as he could. The meeting with Danzo was making him a bit paranoid. The traveling was very bothersome. It's easy to talk about running for the whole day but actually doing it? It was Ren's most hated thing in his new life. He hated it even more than physical drills, loathed it with his very soul. It was just so freaking boring. He couldn't even go through his fuinjutsu work in his head because he had to be on guard. The scenery was just the same all the way long. Trees over here, trees over there, trees everywhere. Ren did think of using the transportation seal he had in the Land of Waves and leg it to the border base from there. It would take him maybe an hour, max 2 if he did that. But the seal was still a secret and he did not need the questions about how he got there so fast or why he came from outside of Konoha's borders. He could sneak in but the Land of Waves was teeming with Konoha ninjas right now because of the conflict. It would take only one of them spotting Ren for some uncomfortable questions to arise. So, as vexing as it was, Ren had to do the old-fashioned thing and obediently run there all the way from Konoha. Of course, he was etching his transportation seals with his chakra on bigger rocks and burying them into the ground with earth technique a bit away from the main road every 200 kilometers or so along the way, just so he could avoid something bothersome as travel time the next time he was sent on a mission on this side of the Land of Fire. Honestly, he didn't even care that his transportation seal could not be used in combat. No matter what he did during his experiments, it just didn't work, and he was starting to suspect that Hiraishin worked very differently from his own teleportation design. But who cared? The fast travel was very much worth it, even if using the seal took 20 seconds of concentration. Well, once he had set up a network of beacon seals, that is. The next day, Ren finally reached the border base, bored, tired, and swearing he was going to make a seal that would prevent his body from being besieged by forest insects even if it killed him. Of course, then he had to spend an hour going through various procedures to confirm his identity because ninjas were paranoid and the mission scroll from the Hokage was not enough for them. In any other situation, Ren would applaud their caution. But now he was just annoyed. He had barely avoided being thrown into jail by proving that he was indeed a seal practitioner here to repair their detection seals before he was shown into a small room with a very uncomfortable cot. He may as well sleep on the floor. That's how comfortable it was. Plus the room was chilly. They clearly did not even bother to invest in heating for the base. Ren groaned and decided to just set up a few heating seals on the walls before sleeping. He was also going to store a comfortable bed and a sealing scroll the next time he went on a mission. An hour later, he was finally finished making the room at least somewhat comfortable for him and laid on the cot, hoping he would sleep easily. As he was falling asleep, he suddenly remembered all these people in his past world who would give anything to be in his place. Ren just inwardly snorted. How could anybody actually desire to be reborn into this world and be a ninja was beyond him. Going on missions was pure torture. Lunatics. All of them. Chapter 24, ch 24, Kigo. Hello. A man in his early 20s with mousy brown hair and a bit of stubble suddenly sat next to Ren in the cafeteria of the border base and cheerfully greeted him. I am Kigo. I will be escorting you to the detection seals. One of them is faulty for sure, but I don't know about the rest. He stretched his hand that held his chopsticks toward Ren's place but stopped when Ren caught his wrist and gave him an unamused look. Come on, man. Kigo pouted like a kid, trying to give Ren a puppy dog gaze, just a bite. Ren had to admit, disturbingly enough, that it was working a bit, but he quickly shook himself. Get your own. Fine. Kigo whined before standing up. I'll be right back. He huffily walked toward the counter where they distributed the food. Ren just watched his back with a bewildered look, thinking what the fuck just happened as his introverted nature tried to come to terms with Kigo's extrovert behavior. It didn't take long for Kigo to return with a plate of food of his own, and despite people seated at many different tables waving at him to join them, he sat down opposite Ren once again, a friendly grin on his face as he dug in. With a frown, Ren spoke. You seem familiar. I seem to recognize you from somewhere. It was really bugging him too. No idea. As far as I know, this is the first time we are meeting, buddy. Kigo casually shrugged and Ren nodded. Yes, he was sure he would remember somebody so annoyingly outgoing. Then again, I am very handsome. Kigo grasped his chin and posed a bit with a smirk etched on his face. Maybe a female friend of yours has a poster of me in her bedroom? Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. He wiggled his eyebrows. Ren laughed. He could see why so many people here seemed to like him. It was funny because Kigo was definitely not handsome. He was not ugly, but he had a long way to go to be a pretty boy. He kinda reminded Ren of a more muscular Shaggy. The only thing the man lacked was Scooby-Doo. As he thought that, Ren's mind suddenly clicked. He remembered having similar thoughts in the past. The bingo book. He said with realization, you have a C-rank bounty from IWA. The Earthbender Kigo. Kigo's good mood suddenly seemed to be ruined and his shoulders slumped. Ugh, don't remind me. I really messed up and my parents were very angry at me for getting it. I prefer to ignore that it ever happened. He scowled, glaring at his food. Contrary to the popular belief in his past life, bounties were not fun. Ninjas didn't want them. In stories in his previous worlds, people used them as some sort of level system. The higher the bounty, the more powerful the character. And they made the characters happy about getting more bounty as it raised their value, or something. That's not how it worked in the real world. For a ninja, having a bounty meant two things. Either they were in the field so long and they were so effective that their work was noticed, or they fucked up. Ninjas were supposed to be unnoticed during their more unsavory jobs. Having a bounty meant being a criminal in the country of origin of said bounty. Not many people talked about this. But ninjas were criminals. Their profession demanded it from them. Assassination, kidnapping, sabotage, spying, prostitution, threats, massacres, all ninja villages did these things to an extent. If you get a mission to blow up a bridge in another country and you are noticed, you won't be congratulated for a job well done. The less said about massacring a civilian village in another country because a rich merchant paid your village enough money for it. Oh, the villages tried to show a friendly face to the rest of the world to attract customers. But when it came to these unsavory well-paid missions, the cage's mindset usually was along the lines, if we don't do it and take the money, another village certainly will. So, if it happens anyway, we might as well be the ones paid for it. Naruto truly did not understand the things Hokage did. The missions he signed on to get money for the village. So, if a person had a bounty on their head, they were either somebody a cage or a noble wanted dead for some reason, or they did something naughty enough in another country, making them put a price on their head. The latter was far more common. And with having a bounty, came problems. Kakashi can't vacation in the Earth country because he would have 6 squads of IWA hunter ninjas after his ass the second he is spotted over there. Having a bounty meant having bounty hunters, rogue ninjas, and even ninjas from other villages after your head. And in this world, people like Kakuzu exist. Having a bounty was most definitely not a joyous occasion. It made some low-end ninja tremble in fear for their lives. The system wouldn't exist if it wasn't a good enough deterrent. Alright, Shaggy. Ren jest, I get it. No talking about the drinks at the bar we could afford if we cashed in your head. That made the gloom around Kigo subside a bit and his lips twitched into the beginnings of a smile. Shaggy. He raised his eyebrow at Ren. But Ren just nonchalantly shrugged and pointed at him with his chopsticks. You look like Shaggy. Oh, Kigo scrunched his forehead in thought, probably wondering who the hell was Shaggy. Not that he would be figuring that out anytime soon. Ren thought the man would ask, but then he just grinned again in an uncaring manner and exclaimed, I like it. You heard that, boys? Call me Shaggy from now on. Kigo stood up and shouted to the rest of the room, getting back jeers and cheers as people raised their glasses in acknowledgement while Ren stared in dumbstruck silence at the spectacle. Does that mean we can't call you dumbass anymore? Somebody from the crowd shouted and the room erupted into abrupt laughter that only stopped a moment later when the commander of the base showed up. Shut up, you idiots. You are heard all the way to IWA, the commander shouted, huffing and puffing in anger as he turned toward Kigo with a stern gaze, murder in his eyes. Opsy, Kigo sheepishly chuckled. Honestly, watching Kigo get a stern scolding for almost enticing a rebellion due to his sheer stupidity was the highlight of Ren's day. He had barely known Kigo for an hour, but he had to say, he liked the guy. Chapter 25, ch 25. The seal inspection after breakfast. Kigo still had something to do, so Ren had to wait for him until lunch before they finally left to inspect the detection seals. It sounded important. The detection seal system, but it was far less impressive than it sounded, which was why nobody was rushing Ren to go and have a look at it. It was just one component of the border security here, and it wasn't even all that effective. The regular patrols with sensor ninjas probably caught more intruders than these seals, especially since the seals were in the forest a few kilometers away from the shoreline, but it was like locking the door to the house after already locking the gate. It simply added a bit more security. The security seals send a signal to the master seal at the border base whenever somebody with a genin level chakra or more passes near them, but their range is only around 50 meters and unfortunately, there are quite large gaps between the seal placements. The border was just too wide to have these seals every 50 meters, so they were only in key spots. Plus, it was obvious to Ren that they were painted by a single person, so probably not many in the barrier core could create them, which limited how many could Konoha put near each border base. It also showed how stretched thin the barrier core were to send a fresh genin for this maintenance run, but he wouldn't complain. There were some benefits for him from it. When Ren saw the first detection seal, he instantly had several ideas on how to improve them, but he didn't act on it. If he did so, the Konoha's higher UPS would definitely have him run all around the Land of Fire's border, adjusting every single one of these seals to be better. It would take him years. No, this was not the time to show off. This was the time to shut up and do his job and only his job. He would keep his ideas and create something for himself based on them later on. So, how are things back in Konoha? Kigo asked after Ren checked the 10th seal and they were on their way to the 11th, probably bored out of his mind. They were supposed to stay silent and on guard, but the man was a genuine chatterbox and clearly found it hard. Ren shrugged, I don't know. The same as always? Peaceful? The village is preparing for sure, but the overall atmosphere did not change. That's good. Kigo happily smiled, I really wish this conflict would end soon. Sitting in the border base all day is boring. Can't wait to get back home. Yeah, no, somebody waiting for you, Ren teased. Kigo rubbed his nose in embarrassment, hee hee. I have a childhood sweetheart back in Konoha. I miss her. That's nice. It really was. Ren was happy for him. She didn't agree to go out with me yet, but... Kigo awkwardly turned his head away from Ren, making his lips twitch. Say no more. Let me guess. Ren rubbed his chin, pretending to be deep in thought before he deadpanned, she doesn't know she is your childhood sweetheart. It frankly wouldn't surprise him with how the man acted. Low blow. Kigo huffed, but no. I didn't ask her out yet. I wanted to, but I kinda chickened out, hee hee. He blushed before his shoulders slumped, I feel like a loser. But, I'll ask her out the second I return from this mission. I already made up my mind. They walked in silence for a few moments because Ren genuinely didn't know what to say next. Fortunately, Kigo wasn't short for words. What about you? Anybody waiting for you back home? He asked, making Ren's eyebrows furrow as he considered the answer. Not really. I am tutoring 2 academy students back in Konoha, but I don't think that counts. Female students. Kigo threw Ren a mischievous grin, but Ren just rolled his eyes at the man-child. Does it matter? Yes. Kigo sagely nodded. They are girls. Ren dryly said. Ooh-hoo. Kigo's grin widened, and do you want to have sex with them? Ren didn't expect such a blunt question, not even from Kigo. So, it almost made him miss his next step. After finding his balance, he turned toward Kigo and retorted, they are 14. That's not a no. Kigo helpfully informed Ren with a small shrug, making Ren snort. Fuck you. I am straight. Kigo casually shook his head in refusal. Ren threw him an irritated look and muttered under his nose, could have fooled me. Still not a no. Kigo reminded Ren in a sing-song voice, making Ren sigh in exasperation. You need Jesus. Ren said, speeding up his walking speed and leaving Kigo slightly behind. Kigo olishly blinked. Who? Quickly catching up with Ren, Kigo decided to change the topic, probably recognizing he was pushing a little bit too far into Ren's comfort zone with his teasing. Anyway, we should totally go out for drinks back home. I can introduce you to a few chicks. Ren glanced at him, noticing that he was actually serious right now, and slightly smiled. I thought you were the guy who had problems confessing to your childhood friend? How come you know chicks? Are there a lot of chicken coops near your house? Kigo just waved the question off. Looking at you, you will need somebody who can take the reins. A dominatrix per ha alright. He wasn't as serious as Ren thought. Ren's fist sprang up and almost smashed into Kigo's shoulder, but the man barely managed to jump back while shouting, Otto. Hey, what was that for? I'll show you dominatrix. I'll tie you up and leave you inside the land of earth borders if you try that. Ren threatened in a light-hearted tone. You don't need to go that far. I was just joking, brother. Kigo pouted and petulantly crossed his arms on his chest. Right. Because I am sure if I let you set up a blind date for me, Enko Mitarashi would totally not show up. Yeah, Ren retorted with a small amused smirk. He did contemplate for a moment if it would be worth it. He was interested in Orochimaru's cursed seal, but meeting a psycho like Enko, Ren wasn't very enthusiastic about it. You know me so well already. Kigo interrupted Ren's thoughts. You really are my brother from another mother. Ren blinked at that, finding it hard to believe Kigo said this to him. You said the same thing to the guard just 3 hours ago. Right in front of me. He dryly said, giving Kigo a disbelieving look. Well, it works, Kigo awkwardly defended, rubbing the back of his head while his cheeks slightly flushed from embarrassment. Ren would bet the man forgot he said the same thing to the guard. Anyway, we are almost there. That detection seal is definitely faulty. Kigo seriously said, switching the topic and trying to pretend the previous few seconds did not happen. Ren contemplated for a moment if he should tease him further, but seeing the nervous look in his brown eyes, he decided to cut him some slack. How do you know? He asked, focusing on the faulty seal instead. I tried crossing near it, but apparently, nothing was noticed back at the base. It clearly doesn't work, Kigo said as they approached a big rock reaching up to Ren's torso, sitting in the middle of the forest among the trees. It's on the rock. They came closer to the rock and Ren put his palm on it, pulsing his chakra in a specific way to. The seal suddenly appeared on the rock and Ren frowned. More than faulty, it looked disru. His eyes instantly widened as his ears caught a slight noise from behind and he jumped away from the rock, not even having enough time to shout out a warning for Kigo as swishing sounds passed the place he stood at just a split second ago. Ren landed horizontally on a tree trunk in a crouch and looked back toward the rock, only to grimace in sadness as he saw Kigo riddled with several kunao handles deep in various parts of his body. The one going straight through the middle of his neck was definitely fatal even if he somehow miraculously survived the others. Releasing a sad breath, Ren glanced around the treetops and noticed 4 ninjas, all wearing a Blankumbo mask, making Ren curse under his nose, but he didn't have the time to complain as he quickly had to jump away from the tree he stood on before a fireball smashed into it. Chapter 26 Ch 26 Ambush. Ren gritted his teeth as he barely evaded another kunao and cursed himself for getting careless. Kigo was so easygoing that Ren had to ashamedly admit it rubbed on him. He didn't even create a shadow clone to shadow him before he started to inspect the seals. So, he now had to fight on an unprepared battlefield, and if he created a shadow clone now, his enemies would instantly notice and be wary. He needed to be out of sight for that move to be effective. Another ninja suddenly appeared behind Ren, slashing his tanto at his back. With no other choice, Ren pulsed his chakra outward while refining it into wind chakra, and suddenly, a wave of slightly pressurized air blew everything around Ren away from him, the attacking ninja included. It was a variant of wind release breakthrough technique, but because the wind wasn't released in one direction, it wasn't concentrated enough to cause injuries. So, Ren's attacker just somersaulted in the air and landed on his feet a few meters away, ready to jump again at Ren. Having now 5 ninjas surround him instead of 4 made Ren inwardly groan, but he suspected there was still 1 or 2 hiding. It was a standard tactic to show a part of the assassination team, lulling the target into a false sense of security as the hiding members struck from the shadows. Ren connected a chakra string with a tree trunk 6 meters to his left and managed to slingshot his body out of the trajectory of water bullet jutsu that instead crashed into the tree that was behind Ren a moment ago, cracking its bark as Ren once again landed in a crouch on a tree. This time, however, he instantly jumped toward one of his assailants while throwing a kunao at another. The one Ren tried to engage pulled out tanto just as Ren's kunao was parried by his other target, but barely before Ren reached his opponent, the kunao the other ninja parried exploded with a resounding boom, painting the ground and the surrounding trees with his blood and torn pieces of his body from the metal shrapnel. Ren didn't hesitate, and instead of pressing on with his attack, he used the moment to jump back into the canopy, disappearing into it. As he landed, he noticed with a backward glance that under the spot he stood a rock spike suddenly burst from the ground and a bead of sweat appeared on his brow as he realized how close to death he was. If he pressed on with the attack, he would have gotten skewered. If he tried to sink into the ground as he for a moment thought of doing, he wouldn't have made it, and his upper body would have sported a new unwanted hole by now. These 5 Ren noticed that none of the remaining 4 ninjas around had their hands joined in hand seals, and the guy splattered around the forest ground in pieces certainly wasn't the source of the rock spike either. These 6 ninjas were clearly a highly trained assassination squad. Their teamwork was impeccable and their attacks covered each other's blind spots. They were at least low-level jonins too. Ren didn't need to wonder who sent them. Danzo's face appeared in Ren's mind. Then again, there was a non-zero chance that these 6 ninjas were indeed from Kiri and Ren was just at the wrong place at the wrong time. It wasn't just Danzo's goons that wore blank masks. The anime used that to differentiate them, but in reality, even regular Umbu from Konoha and other villages wore blank masks when on secret missions. But somehow, Ren doubted this was a Kiri operation despite the fact the 6 were dressed the part. From his hiding place, Ren saw one of the ninjas point his finger toward him just as 2 others had their hands flickering through various hand seals. Oh, shit. A sensor. Alarms rang through Ren's mind as the 2 ninjas finished their techniques and one spewed a wind bullet while the other used another fireball, both merging and becoming much stronger and bigger as they flew straight at Ren. Knowing that using fire was a deliberate choice on their part because they saw him use wind, Ren didn't try to use a jutsu. He just threw another exploding kunao at the fireball and used the ensuing explosion to block it. But Ren's opponents were too experienced to believe the fireball would be enough. Before he could counterattack, he had already a hail of shuriken flying at him. Jumping down from the canopy to avoid them, Ren threw a kunao at the ground in between the ninjas. They didn't fall for it. Knowing what happened to their late comrade, they didn't try to block it and simply jumped away. It gave Ren the necessary seconds to start his counterattack. One of the ninjas, the censor, evaded the kunao by jumping closer to Ren, and that proved fatal to him when Ren appeared behind him and smacked an exploding tag right on the middle of his back before sinking into the ground. The man clearly panicked and tried to take his vest off, but Ren deliberately made that particular tag have a short fuse. The man wasn't even halfway done with undressing when it exploded and his body was ripped into bloody confetti of bones and pieces of meat. 3 seconds later, Ren burst from the ground under another enemy, the kunao in his hand aiming to burrow itself into the man's thigh to sever a major artery. But his attack was prevented when the hiding ninja, the one that used the rock spike, also appeared from the ground, his tanto blocking Ren's kunao before trying to send him flying away with a kick. Without the gravity seals, Ren was much faster, though when he was about to break the man's leg at the knee when he was forced to retreat because the other 2 remaining enemies regained their wits too quickly and were about to skewer him with shurikens. Noticing the earth spike using ninja trying to use a jutsu again, Ren jumped into the air, barely managing to avoid an earth spike only for the man he failed to kill to spew a fireball at him. Ren dodged the fireball by pushing his body further up into the air with an application of wind chakra, only to notice 4 kunao flying at him from his blind spot. They were already far too close and he didn't have prepared anything for substitution, nor did he have the time to mold more wind chakra. There was no evading them. Twisting his body in mid-air, Ren winced as a kunao buried itself deep in his shoulders, but he managed to barely avoid the other 3 lethal hits, getting only 2 bloody scratches, one across his right biceps while the other on his left thigh, while the last kunao didn't hit him at all. It was much preferable to having them hit important organs or arteries. Unfortunately, the slight distraction from pain caused Ren to react a moment too late, and the follow-up attack, a water bullet, smashed into his body that was still in the air and propelled him toward a tree. Ren's back painfully impacted the tree and he felt a rib or 2 snapping. Managing to ignore the pain, Ren instantly sent a chakra string toward a nearby tree and used it to pull his body away, just in time to avoid the finishing move, a wind bullet that completely shredded the tree trunk he previously smashed into. Ren twisted his body, grimacing as he smacked into a tree with his uninjured shoulder. Due to the haste, he couldn't control the force behind his chakra string, so the landing was rough, but at least he was still alive. He instantly threw a smoke bomb under him to gain a few precious seconds and put his hand on the tree trunk. A seal slowly spread from his fingers onto the tree in the span of 3 seconds, just as a wind from some wind-released jutsu blew the smoke away. Ren threw his body to the side, evading yet another salvo of kunao as he activated the seal. It was a magnetic seal supposed to attract everything magnetic. Ren had his gear sealed in storage seal, so the only magnetic thing was his head protector, but he had already stored that into a seal too. The other ninjas didn't have the same luxury and the seal affected them. It disrupted their following attack as their bodies were yanked in the direction of the seal by all the kunao, shuriken, and tanto they had on their person. The seal was too far away from them, so the pull wasn't especially strong. At best, it brought Ren a few precious seconds as they stumbled, but it was enough as he suddenly noticed a scroll flying through the air above the tree line and his lips widened into a relieved smile. Feeling a pull of substitution, Ren didn't fight it and let it whisk him away as his body was substituted with a shadow clone he made underground after dealing with the censor ninja. He appeared some distance away from the battlefield, in time to see the sealing scroll his clone threw into the air burst open, sending a veritable storm of paper tags all around. The 4 ninjas who had only just recovered from their stumbling due to magnetic pull only managed to widen their eyes as they were abruptly covered in exploding tags, the seals on the tags already glowing red. Ren watched as the scenery in front of him exploded into uncountable flaming balls followed by booming sounds of explosions, and he had to brace himself against a tree to not be thrown away by the ensuing wave of uncomfortably hot air that hit him, making him close his eyes on instinct. For 15 seconds, the world turned into a fiery loud hell. When it was all over and Ren opened his eyes again, in the radius of 50 meters around the scroll, where the forest was full of trees, were now just numerous molten craters. Ren flopped onto the ground with a groan, completely spent. Note to self: make a finishing move that you can use with your body still in the blast zone. He inwardly grumbled. This move was supposed to be used just before he teleported with his transportation seal, but his opponents didn't exactly give him 20 seconds to concentrate for the teleport to happen. It was insane how coordinated they were and how little time to react they had given him. This was the hardest fight he had so far. It had shown him quite a few of his shortcomings. Fighting 6 jonins at once was definitely not a fun experience. Ren leaned his back on a tree behind him and pulled out the kunai from his shoulders with a wince of pain. Now he just had to wait for the border patrol to come and carry him back to the base. The explosions were surely noticed and a team was definitely on its way by now. Ren just had to rest, and think how to screw Danzo's day for this after he returned to the village. Chapter 27, ch 27, Home Away from Home NGH. Ren groaned as he woke up and hugged his pillow closer to his chest, lying in a comfortable bed in pure bliss. It had been a week since the ambush and he was finally back in Konoha. After the ambush, nothing interesting really happened, and Ren had to grit his teeth through the inspection of the remaining detection seals because they did not have a proper medic ninja on staff in the border base. The medic there was barely an apprentice and didn't know the green glowy handjob technique Sakura was so proud of. Thinking of it like that made Ren grin and press his face into his pillow, enjoying its softness. He truly missed it during that blasted mission, but then he had to wince as he put a bit too much pressure on his chest and a flare of pain briefly assaulted him. The medic at the border base just ensured his ribs were set right so they could heal properly on their own. When Ren finally arrived back in Konoha yesterday, the hospital was the first place he visited, but the medics there saw that his ribs were already half healed and decided not to waste their chakra on him since his injury was not urgent. Ren had received a month of paid medical leave and was told to let his ribs heal naturally. On the one hand, it was great and he evaded a lot of busy work for the next month. On the other, living with broken ribs was not a fun experience. Then again, Ren had kind of gotten used to it during the past week. His excuse for arriving in Konoha yesterday when he actually left the border base 5 days ago was that he opted to walk instead of running due to his injury. But that wasn't the truth. Ren took a detour to the capital of the Land of Fire and splurged his savings by buying a small house there. It hurt his wallet somewhat fiercely, but fortunately, ninjas earned a lot of money and Ren didn't need many ninja supplies for his combat style. The highest expense for seal users would be the chakra ink, but ever since Ren figured out how to etch seals with his chakra alone, he hadn't used chakra ink, saving thousands of ryo every week. That shit was crazy expensive. Other than that, Ren bought a set of kunai here and there, but that was it. Most of his money for missions and supplying the village with the exploding tags on a weekly basis was saved, plus he still had some of the money the Akimichi clan paid him for the new recipes. By now, he had enough for a house in the capital. The reason why Ren bothered with this was Danzo. Ren didn't truly think the old bastard would attack him inside Konoha. That would be a bit too much even for him. Public order and safety were a big thing in Konoha. In the village full of killers, the higher UPS can't have ninjas sneaking into each other's houses and assassinating people. The village had to remain a safe oasis from the violence in their life. It had to remain a place where ninjas serving it could feel safe and wouldn't need to be constantly on guard. Their whole system was built on that principle. So, no, Ren didn't think Danzo would go far enough to break this unwritten rule. That said, Uchiha Massacre. Ren would rather err on the side of caution. He also didn't fancy having to fear an assassin sneaking into his house while he was sleeping. So, he simply put a transportation seal into his house in the capital city, and when he arrived at his apartment in Konoha, Ren spent 4 hours putting up numerous seals all around it for security and surveillance purposes, connecting them to a master seal that he could use to access the seals no matter how far away he was from them. Then, he used the transportation seal and hopped into his house in the capital for a good night's sleep. The best way to avoid assassins in Konoha and sleep without needing to be on guard was naturally to not be in Konoha at all. Even if the supposed assassin did get through Ren's security seals, he would not find him at home during the night, and it only took 20 seconds for Ren to use his transportation seal to pop in and out of Konoha anyway. Of course, this was technically a treason. Ninjas were forbidden to leave their village without permission. That was a major rule. Doing so was tantamount to desertion, and if a ninja did that, it would instantly earn him the rank of rogue ninja, and hunter ninjas would be sent to either retrieve or kill him depending on his value to the village. Izumo and Katetsu, who always guard the gate, are not there for its protection. They are basically clerks who are supposed to check if every ninja leaving the village has the proper permission. If not, the Umbu team on the real gate guard duty would deal with it. That always irked Ren. In his past life, he was used to a bit more freedom of movement. In the end, Ren decided that what the Konoha higher UPS don't know won't bother them. Konoha was big and there was no rule that a ninja had to spend their night in their house. Plus, ninjas popped in and out of places constantly. There was no way to prove that Ren was not inside the village even if they had seen him disappear via his transportation seal. Most low-end ninjas would just write it off as Shunshin anyway, and Ren was not going to use that seal in front of Jonins anytime soon. The only ninja capable of teleportation in the recent past was the 4th Hokage anyway. There was no way the other ninjas would believe some unknown, fresh Chunin could achieve the same feat. Their very own preconceived notions would prevent them from seeing it. Suddenly, an alarm seal rang, fully waking Ren from his sleep and making him grumble as he sluggishly put his hand on the paper tag with the master seal to his home security that was lying on the bedside table. The master seal connected with the detection seal Ren shamelessly plagiarized and improved upon, working in tandem with other surveillance seals of his, and Ren's mind was abruptly filled with a vague mental map of his apartment in Konoha. There was somebody in front of his door, and the alarm rang not because they tried to get in but because they knocked on the door. From their chakra levels, Ren could say they were about high genin. He didn't have a surveillance seal outside his home in fear that somebody would recognize it, so he didn't see who was in front of his door. But he didn't need a seal to deduce that it was Hinata. Ruefully sighing and getting out of his bed, Ren put a loose shirt on himself and used the transportation seal to pop back into his apartment in Konoha. Opening the door wearing only the shirt and shorts while having his right hand under his shirt and absent-mindedly rubbing his stomach, Ren saw the wide-eyed Hyuga girl holding a basket while staring at him in open-mouthed wonder. Ren olishly blinked and then almost let out a petulant whine when he noticed the veins around her eyes bulging out. "You just appeared in your house out of nowhere. Did you teleport?" she excitedly asked, clutching the basket to her chest while her creepy eyes almost sparkled in curiosity. Hearing her, Ren facepalmed with a groan. "Of course, my Hyuga student was obviously going to abuse her Byakugan as I taught her and my secret would be out before the first day ended. Lately, my luck is just superb, isn't it?" he wryly complained in his mind as he ushered Hinata in. Chapter 28 CH28 visits. Turns out, Hinata used her Byakugan because she was worried that something happened to Ren when he didn't answer his door. She heard that he returned to the village from his mission injured, so she hurried over to check on him. Once again, the 20 seconds necessary to use his transportation seal screwed Ren over. It took a bit of persuasion, but eventually, Ren managed to make Hinata drop the whole teleportation issue and keep it a secret. At least, for the time being. "Are you really okay?" Hinata asked, concern clear in her voice, as they sat at Ren's kitchen table, eating together the food she brought in her basket. And Ren was very grateful for her thoughtfulness. He didn't fancy going out to eat today, so, having her homemade cooking felt great. But most importantly, he was a bit happy that Hinata cared enough to do this for him. Deep down, it made him feel appreciated. It was nice. "The breaks in your ribs are almost joined, but there are still multiple small fractures," Hinata said with a small frown, looking intently at Ren with her Byakugan. A thought that she was looking at bones within his body passed through Ren's mind and he subconsciously shivered. It was a bit creepy. Seeing him shiver, Hinata misunderstood it. She stood up and took her jacket from her chair before walking toward Ren and caringly putting it over his shoulders as she muttered under her nose, "Stupid Kiri ninjas," with her lips angrily pressed together. Ren gave her an amused smile in return, patting in appreciation her hand that rested on his shoulder. The gesture was adorable, as was her belief that it was Kiri ninjas who ambushed him. Naturally, Ren didn't say in his report that Root attacked him. Firstly, he was not supposed to know about Root. Secret Umbu division meant that even the majority of Jonin in Konoha had no idea about its existence. If he knew about them, it would instantly bring suspicion to him. And secondly, even if he complained to Hokage, there was no proof these ninjas were from Root. He couldn't just say that they wore blank masks, so obviously they belonged to Danzo. Plus their bodies were incinerated by his paper bomb, so their sealed tongues were not available either. Sure, if Ren informed the Hokage about his suspicions and the previous meeting he had with Danzo, the man would probably pay more attention to his wayward friend. But Ren doubted it would have much effect. Sarutobi knew Danzo was a piece of shit. He survived 2 assassination attempts of his, after all. It's not even that Sarutobi can't do anything. He could mobilize his Umbu and kill Danzo and his Root in one day. It's simply that he doesn't want to deal with the political consequences and management issues that would ensue afterward. And if even an attempt at assassinating the Hokage was something Danzo could get away with under Sarutobi's rule, then the attempt at killing Ren would be just laughed out of the room. Maybe even if he had concrete evidence. Without said evidence? Why even bother going through the official channels? This was Konoha. Things didn't work that way over here. Inwardly shaking his head as he enjoyed another spoonful of Hinata's homemade curry, Ren decided to focus on the here and now. He looked at Hinata, who was once again sitting opposite him. "You know, I should really get some books on medical ninjutsu for you. Your Byakugan will give you a very unfair advantage. Most medics have to do their thing by vague feelings from their diagnostic jutsu and experience, but you Hyugas can actually see what you are doing." Ren hummed. Then he remembered that he had promised something along those lines to himself the second Ebisu pushed his tutoring duties onto him. He just really didn't want to deal with having to find a medic amicable enough to give some lessons and lend books on the subject. It was going to be a pain in the ass. So, Ren previously just kept pushing it to his future self. He looked at Hinata and decided to make sure he wouldn't just keep doing that. "Remind me, if I forget, okay? Pester me until I get you the materials if you must." "Alright." Hinata seriously nodded and Ren mischievously smiled. "Oh, and the curry is delicious. You will make one man very happy when you grow up," he said, trying to lighten the mood. He got his desired result when Hinata's cheeks instantly flushed and she ducked her head. Because of it, Ren only saw her happy smile from under her hair and inwardly smirked, before he remembered his blunder with Naruto, and that made him put a lot of effort into not grimacing on the spot. He would try to explain to the boy why Hinata did not help him with his studies when he met him next, but he would not meddle in their relationship anymore. If there was supposed to be something between them, it would happen even without Ren's meddling. He would probably only screw things up even more if he tried. After a few seconds of awkward silence full of Hinata's eyes staring into her plate, but well, Byakugan, so Ren couldn't be sure, she started opening her mouth to say something when the apartment bell suddenly rang, completely dispelling the fluffy atmosphere around. Hinata sprang forth, almost standing up from fright at the sudden sound before falling back onto her chair and making Ren chuckle as he slowly stood up and went to open the door. Hinata just sat in the room, staring wide-eyed at the kitchen door Ren had just exited, trying to calm her racing heart. But then, a moment later, a blonde avalanche burst into the room, widely grinning and dragging the awkward Ren to the kitchen by his wrist. Seeing Hinata, Ino stopped in her tracks and casually waved at her. "Yo, bitch. Hinata's eyes twitched, all the warm and fuzzy feelings she felt were suddenly gone. She narrowed her eyes, bimbo. Ren could swear he felt a smidgen of killing intent, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared, and he couldn't be sure he wasn't just imagining things. Oh, free food, Ino happily exclaimed as she led Ren to the chair before ruffling through his cupboards until she found additional cutlery and a plate for herself. She put them on the table, about to get herself a serving from the curry on the table when her eyes found something much more important than food. Look at you. She huffed and walked behind Ren, completely unaware of Hinata, who was still glaring at her. What are you doing with such messy hair? She clicked her tongue and pulled a hairbrush from her handbag. Let me fix it, she said, and started trying to tame Ren's bed hair. He could only sit there, completely bewildered and wondering what the hell was going on. Hurricane Ino was something else. What are you doing here? Hinata asked in an annoyed tone with pursed lips, throwing Ino an irritated look. But Ino just continued brushing Ren's hair while cluelessly tilting her head. Huh? The same thing as you. Just checking on my injured teacher, she said in an isn't it obvious, kind of tone. Right. Hinata bluntly deadpanned, her fingers briefly twitching, giving Ren a hunch that she wanted to punch Ino in the face. He just sat there, having a vague feeling that he had just missed something important, but he couldn't be bothered to think about it right now. Ino was quite good with the brush, and the feeling of her fingers on his scalp was very pleasant. He decided to enjoy it while it lasted. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't remember when was the last time somebody gently touched his head. Wasn't that just sad? This universe grows with every follower. Are you part of Infinite Novel yet?